What's up, my people? It's your boy Kenneth, 100 Years of Wealth, back, dropping another video on you. I hope you guys are doing well. Let's get straight into it. So, your boy Bronny James is entering the NBA draft at the same time that he is exploring the transfer portal in the NCAA. So, my thoughts on this are a little bit all over the place. I do think that Bronny is an exceptional player in a lot of ways, even though his numbers weren't that strong in college, right? I feel like he has what's considered a strong basketball IQ. He has good decision making. Probably just needs more playing time in a situation that allows him to work through those like maybe hesitation moments. So I do think that he has potential if he continues to grow because he has like a strong base as a basketball player. He's the way he carries himself, he's very athletic, he has a good shot, great passing. So even though he did not, score crazy numbers or really lead his team, I do think he has potential and could eventually play in the NBA. His ability to get there right now, I think, is more the fact that he has a brand name. He has obviously his father who is pushing to play with his son. So it makes it to where other teams are going to be like open to that idea and that concept because they think that there's a chance to get LeBron James as well. But depending on how realistic that chance is, some teams may not even consider him based on his own skill set. You know what I mean? Like if there's really not a real chance to get LeBron James to come play with their team, that team might not even think that it's worth it to try to draft him, right? But obviously there's talks that are going on in the background that we're not privy to. I think the whole thing is this. There's clearly other players that are on his current team that were better than him already. None of those players are making the announcement to enter into the NBA draft, at least that I'm not aware of. It just screams of nepotism, right? So I'm not gonna go so hard and like go hard on Bronny James because I think as a young, athletic, kid with a lot of potential, it's not bad to kind of like shoot your shot and go for it and see what happens. I think it does look a little like crafted by LeBron James. Like, hey, look, you're not ready, but jump in there anyway. We'll get some looks and see what happens. And for me that side of it kind of it helps water down the league, right? I feel like the other NBA players that got their kid or not got their kids, but have children that ended up playing, let's say like Kenyon Martin or Scottie Pippen, you never really had a campaign by them talking about publicly, their kid getting into the league or them wanting to play with their kid. Obviously, I think those players were already out of the league at the time, so that wouldn't be a conversation. But my point is, there was no push by them. There was no incentive for teams to pick up their kid. You know what I mean? Like there's not like some, management team like Clutch Sports that's also pulling strings in the background. So you could assume that those players that got picked up, like Scottie Pippen Jr., Kenyon Martin Jr., who's some other players, what's his name? Sabonis' son. I think they might have the same name, but Sabonis, that's on Sacramento. These players had no sort of like lobbying by their parents, unless it's completely on the back end. I'm sure that they're doing what they can to create relationships, but there's no incentive for those teams to draft these players based on possibly getting their parent, right? So it makes it like nepotism is part of that equation if he were to get drafted right now. And I say that, and a lot of people are going to say that because of the fact that he had such below average numbers in college, right? Like I, as a basketball fan and a true basketball savant, I feel like I can look at him and say, okay, I watched him in high school. He does have above average talent, right? An above average skill set in the sense that he's very efficient. He seems to have like a good view of the floor, a good pace, doesn't force it. I like a lot of things about him, but that was from what I saw on a high school level, right? When you go to college, that's the next level, right? Like there was a bunch of people on his current team that outshined him. There was people on other teams that were able to control him and keep him from shining like he did in high school. So that kind of tells you that maybe you weren't at that level yet, right? Like maybe it was going to take you your second year of college to get to that level. But you had a couple of moments in college, but if you average, I think 5 points or so, that doesn't to me scream ready for the NBA, right? But I feel like this does happen more often nowadays. It's not just specifically Bronny James. I feel like it does happen more often where you have people being drafted not based on their current state, not based on their current skill set, but based on their potential and where the team sees them going, right? So I do see that more often. People are trying to like secure talent, even if it's not completely where it's going to be at. So I can't say this is completely a nepotism move, but it's going to scream of nepotism after you have a below average year. You don't shine in college. You're at like a premier school. You don't move the needle at all. You don't really stand out like you did in high school. And even in high school, it was like you were great. You were really good. I would say your junior and senior year. Before that, you were a good player on the team, but it wasn't like you were the star on the team, you know? Even though if you watch highlights, they'll show you all the highlights and you'll make that assumption. But if you put the numbers together and you watched more of it, you'd see that he was a good player on the team for those freshman, sophomore years. But, you know, he got better as junior and senior. And I think that, like, for maybe you can consider me like an old school NBA fan, we're used to people coming out. People that were getting drafted into the league, we're used to them being like man-childs, right? Like we're used to them being like freaks of nature, jumping out the building. And Bronny has hops for sure, but I think he might be like 6'2", 6'3", at best, right? Like I've seen him, and I'm like, they want to stretch his height to 6'4". I don't know. I'm 6'5" legit. With shoes, I'm 6'6". So like I have a different perspective on height. And when I see him standing next to his dad is 6'8", right? And he's a lot, you know, he seems to be a lot shorter than his dad. Maybe I'm adding extras to it, but I would say he's about 6'2", maybe 6'1", 6'2". Yeah. So my point is that my perspective, I'm always used to NBA players coming out being like freaks of nature. Like when I was growing up, like Sean Kemp going into the league or something like that. That dude was like jumping out the building, doing windmills. Kevin Garnett, he went pro out of high school, you know, because my dude was like 6'11", banging on grown men, you know, just freaks of nature. Dwight Howard, these people were like, but I get it's a different game. But I feel like the game is different, right? In the sense of like Steph Curry, Klay Thompson really kind of altered how people approach the game. But it ain't like everyone's shooting as good as them, right? Like they changed how people view the game. Like people are like, yeah, we can all shoot threes now. But 10 years in, they're still the only ones doing it like that, right? And that's because not everyone has that skill set. There are special two guys that, in combination with each other, make it really, really hard to guard that type of offense. You need the greatest shooter and then the second greatest shooter in NBA history in order to run that system, or to really rely on the three-pointer as your main thing in your game. And the other thing about that is that Steph Curry actually has dribbles and will take you to the basket, and he has great finishing ability. So to just assume that, you know, because you're 6'2" and you got a decent skill set, that you can now play in the NBA, maybe you can, based on the fact that the game's changed and it's gotten, you know, softer and less size. Well, you know what, I was watching something the other day, and it doesn't seem like it's gotten overall less size. It seems like the average height and size are about the same, but I do feel like you do see more small ball, you know, being played. But at the end of the day, look, and the last note on this was that my man had a major health scare And I would think that they're still in the watching phase on that, right? So it's just an interesting move. I would think a good decision for him would be to, well, let me take that back. How can I speak on what's a good decision for him? But it could work out. He could get drafted into the league, have a decent year, and grow in the league. I wish nothing but the best for him. Or he could go to college or stay in college, go to a different school. I was just thinking to myself, he would probably fit well in a Duke system, right? He's very like consistent, right? He's like a good passer, a good shooter. He needs like a system that's working around where he can get up his shot, make great passes. I think he could thrive in a system like that. And I'm sure there's a bunch of other colleges that have strong systems that he can really be like the floor general on, you know? So and maybe just he wasn't ready in this first year after coming back after that health scare. But at the end of the day, I wish the young man the best. I think as long as he stays healthy, he will find his way into the NBA, and I'm sure he'll have a positive impact. So, hey, look, 100 years of wealth. Cheers to your health. Cheers to your family, and cheers to Bronny James. Wish him the best, and cheers to LeBron James, even though he ain't the GOAT. Kiki.